Welcome back to The Perspective. I'm with Christopher Briggs, security expert, discussing the emergence of IS before it became famous, internationally at least. So, would you say now it's at the limits of its territorial expansion? If so, what next?
Yes, I'd say it's at the limits of its territorial expansion. It might make some more tactical gains on the fringes of Anbar province. Maybe it'll make some more tactical gains in Syria, but I don't see it expanding broadly from the current rump, which encompasses 3 or 4 provinces of Iraq and a couple of provinces of Syria. So what next for Islamic State? I think firstly, I'd say that the leadership, Abu al-Baghdadi, who's an Iraqi from a relatively simple background, not a great deal of international exposure, he is managing quite a complex social media initiative. A lot of this seems to be aimed at outside jihadists to bring them in to the Islamic State. This is quite interesting because Al-Qaeda previously would appeal to, say, disillusioned youth or what have you in the West, trying to track them to their camps with a view to them then taking the battle back to their own homelands. That was very much the Al-Qaeda jihadist model, to train and send back. That's obviously a concern with Islamic State. What appears to be happening immediately, however, is that Islamic State is offering, if you're of this mindset, a far more material package to would-be jihadists from around the world. It's not saying we'll train you up in austere conditions in Pakistan, Afghanistan or where have you, and then send you back to effectively commit suicide in your own country. What Islamic State is offering these disillusioned potential jihadists is you can come here right now to Mosul, Raqqa, Tikrit, and you can live the life now, right here, in the modern age. And we are getting rid of all these secular, liberal elements that are creating, that are going against our Islamic teachings, and you can come and feel what it was like to be part of the ummah, the community, right here, right now. And this clearly is having an impact. We're seeing people going from Western Europe, United States, Australia, around the Islamic world to join the fight within the Islamic State. So perhaps consolidating territorial control by bringing in outsiders who support their doctrine is perhaps their main agenda at the moment.
I do just want to touch on finances. I know you're not an expert on the internal workings, but just to get a picture, you spend a lot of time in the region. How do groups get their funds, and what obstacles do you think have now been removed or put in place by them having some consolidated territorial control?
In the areas they control, there's some oil fields in northeast Syria in an area called Qamishli. There's fairly significant oil fields. I don't know the statistics of barrels per day. Those are still operating at a certain capacity. Clearly not the most efficient capacity, but there are engineers who are still working those oil fields, and there is smuggling of that fuel going on over the border, probably into Turkey or other areas of Syria. So oil revenue is one way they're continuing to derive funds, I understand. Another way they've always derived funds is through taxation. Within their theology, within their legislation, they require people to pay taxes to them as the caliphate, as the rulers. They couch this in Quranic terms and refer it back to certain taxes that were paid in Medina in the 7th century in the age of a prophet, and say, look, we're just copying this. This is the way it should be done. So taxation is a way they deriving funds. Probably that's the mainstay, that every business has to pay a certain fee, which could be like 1/10 of their earnings. Thirdly, you've got kidnapping for ransom. There's been some pretty high-profile kidnaps that have been on international television. There's a lot more local-level kidnapping going on. Perhaps businessmen from Baghdad, their relatives who live in Mosul, being held to ransom until payments are made. A lot of that's going on, so that's a major source of income. Smuggling of virtually anything. Antiquities. Mosul, for example, is the home of the gates of Nineveh, ancient biblical site. There's a very ancient Christian tradition in the area, very ancient churches. Likewise in eastern Syria. So I know that there's a smuggling of antiquities going on. There's pretty much any goods in and out they can derive. Anything coming in, they're obviously getting an import tax on. So they're deriving funds much in the way that a state would.
Well, Christopher, thank you so much. We're out of time, but a real pleasure.
Thank you, Blaise.
Thank you for your insight. Join us next time on The Perspective. For now, I'm Blaise Hope. Goodbye.